Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, I am going to be discussing last night's game between the Lakers and Grizzlies, as well as the game between the Bulls and Blazers. However, before I get too far into it, I would like to remind you all to leave a like and subscribe. I've been appreciating all the support that I've been receiving lately, and I hope to see that continue. Now, without further ado, let's talk about the games. We'll go in chronological order, so we'll start with the Lakers-Grizzlies game. The Lakers came out on top in what was a very ugly affair, ending in a 94-92 final score in a game that really shouldn't have been as close as it was for the Lakers. Now, I get it. It was the fourth game of a road trip for them, and that isn't always going to bode well for a veteran team competing, but they were still able to come away with a win. It was against a very short-handed Grizzlies team that struggled to put up any sort of offensive numbers. And so for that reason, the Lakers should have won by much more than they did. But they still came away with the win, so it's hard to criticize them too much. LeBron obviously was the star tonight for the Lakers. He posted 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. He hit so many huge shots throughout the second half. He really put the Lakers on a big run at the beginning of the third quarter, where it looked like they were going to start pulling away, knocked down multiple threes, as well as a couple mid-range shots off of turnarounds, and was downright impressive during that stretch. And you started to get the feeling that this was going to go the Lakers' way, similar to the first game of this two-game set between these two teams. But in the second half of the third quarter, after LeBron left the game, the Grizzlies really bounced back. They received some excellent production from their bench tonight, led by, of all people, Gorgui Dieng, who finished with 13 points and 4 rebounds on 6 for 8 shooting and knocked down a three-pointer in his only attempt. Dieng is a really interesting role player to me as someone who can protect the rim defensively and be a bit of a stretch big on the offensive end. And he had a pretty nice game tonight for the Grizzlies, obviously. He was their co-leading scorer as Jonas Valanciunas, and Dillon Brooks also finished with 13 points. But Dieng was the most efficient of the three and played the fewest minutes, so it was a pretty impressive game for him. He gave them a nice spark off the bench. In the first quarter, in particular, they were really struggling offensively, and he knocked down each of his first 4 shots, finished that first quarter with 9 points, and really put the Grizzlies on track to be competitive in this game. So he deserves a lot of credit for keeping it close. But there were other players on the Grizzlies bench that were able to spur that run in conjunction with Dieng's production. They had the return of De'Anthony Melton, who had missed all but one game thus far this season due to the COVID protocols. But Melton had a pretty solid game. He had 5 points and 5 assists, but each of those 5 points came on some pretty impressive shots. One of them was an off-the-bounce three-pointer pull-up shot that he knocked down in the first half. The three-point shot has always been the question with Melton, and although it was the only 3 he knocked down of his 3 attempts, that's certainly a good sign that he had the confidence to take a pull-up 3 early in the shot clock and that it looked pretty good and went in. And the other one was a poster dunk over, I believe it was Talen Horton-Tucker in the late fourth quarter. And that, as well as 2 really nice plays from Melton, one of them being a steal where he jumped a passing lane, and the other being a really, really impressive block shot where he came out of nowhere to reject an Anthony Davis shot, and that led to him getting the run out where he would finish on the break. Made this a pretty impressive night return for Melton. He's a guy that I've been really high on ever since I first saw him play, and I thought that he was one of the better bargain deals of this free agency class. The Grizzlies locked him in on a 4-year, $36 million contract, which is what you would sign a quality bench player to. And I think Anthony Melton has a chance to be a starter long-term for this team in the backcourt alongside Ja Morant. So I definitely think that he's going to help this team out, and it's good that he is back on the court following his battle with COVID, or at least his close contact experience. Desmond Bane and Xavier Tillman both also provided good minutes for the Grizzlies off the bench. They both played 15 minutes or more. And for rookies, they looked pretty good. Tillman had a travel, and I think Bane did as well, just getting some happy feet. And they're rookies, they're going to make mistakes like that. But in general, they looked pretty confident on the court. Tillman finished with 8 points. Bane finished with 7th. They both played strong D, and it looks like those guys are going to be rotational players right away for this Grizzlies team. But anyways, the whole reason why I went off on this side tangent about the Grizzlies bench was to make a point about the struggles of the Lakers when LeBron was off the court. LeBron finished with a plus 20, plus minus for the game, and the Lakers won the game by 2 points. So that means with LeBron off the court, they were a minus 18, and that simply cannot happen. Dennis Schroeder was supposed to be the guy who would come in and make up for that, and he has struggled with efficiency stuff in the early going. He's had a few good moments as a shot maker, but he's not the playmaker that would be perfect playing alongside Anthony Davis when LeBron is out, because he sometimes struggles to find AD in the post and struggles to get him the ball, and that leads to Davis's effectiveness being limited. Davis had a pretty good game tonight, finishing with 26, 10, and 4. He also was an absolute menace on the defensive end, picking up 3 steals and 3 blocks. He was all over the place and was a very key piece of the Lakers holding the Grizzlies to 92 points tonight. But he's not able to create shots for himself. He needs someone else to do that for him. And when LeBron was out of the game, he struggled to do that. There were a few times where he caught the ball in the high post, faced up, and knocked down a mid-range shot or a floater or something along those lines. But the Lakers need to be better with LeBron off the court. For the Grizzlies, I guess my last piece of info on them would be that as long as Ja is out, and it's supposed to be 3 to 5 weeks, so I guess 2 to 4 more weeks, they're going to need someone else to step up as the primary option in the offense if they want to avoid lackluster offensive nights such as this one. The 3 primary candidates for this are Jonas Valanciunas, Dillon Brooks, and Brandon Clarke. Valanciunas is a big guy who, similar to Anthony Davis, is reliant on a perimeter player getting him the ball, and quite honestly, Valanciunas is even more reliant on that than Davis, since he's clearly an inferior ball handler. But Valanciunas is also probably the most natural scorer of the 3, so he's certainly a good candidate here. Brooks is a solid ball-in-hand player who's able to get off a lot of difficult shots, and he certainly makes them sometimes. He made a really nice shot to give the Grizzlies a chance to win this game towards the end, cut the lead from 5 to 2 with about 2 seconds left. But he's also quite inefficient from the field for his career, and I'm not sure that's someone you want as your primary option. So that leaves Brandon Clarke, who I really think needs to step up for this Grizzlies team if they want to stay in the playoff hunt for the remainder of Ja's time out. Clarke finished with 12 points on 5 for 11 shooting tonight, but it felt like for long stretches of the game he disappeared. And with his ability to create shots for himself, get to that floater that he knocks down so well, I'd like to see him take a step forward in the offense. Overall, though, a solid performance from the Grizzlies, where they really fought hard and pushed the Lakers to pretty much the brink and were almost able to come away with a victory. This Grizzlies team has a lot of good role players. They just need that offensive key in order for them to win more, and once Ja Morant is back, he will be able to provide that for them. The only question is, will they have dug themselves too big of a hole to climb out of upon Ja's return? Moving on to the second game of the night, we saw the Bulls taking on the Blazers. The Bulls won this one in what was a very exciting contest as the Blazers jumped out to an early lead. I think they were up by as much as 20 points in the first half, but in the second half, the Bulls methodically hacked away at that lead until all of a sudden it was like a 6-point game. And I thought to myself, wow, the Bulls actually made this one close, but I never really thought that they were going to win it until the last couple minutes when they took a multiple possession lead and started looking really good. Blazers were able to cut that lead down to 1 as the Bulls had the ball with about 30 seconds left, and Zach LaVine penetrated, got to the rim, kicked it out to Otto Porter Jr., and it was a pretty bad pass, but luckily for him it got deflected. Then off the inbounds play, Zach LaVine caught it, came off of a screen from Thad Young, pulled up from 28 feet and knocked down an ice-cold jumper to win the game for the Bulls. LaVine didn't have his best game tonight. He struggled at times to shoot the ball efficiently. Derrick Jones Jr. did a really good job on him, and Jones had a good night for the Blazers defensively. Put up like a 3-steal game and 2 blocks, but LaVine came up clutch when it counted for the Bulls in the shot-making department, made the shot that they really needed him to make to win the game, and that is important. But the big thing to take away from this game, if you are an advocate of Zach LaVine, which I haven't been in the past, but tonight he kind of proved me wrong because I've always doubted his playmaking, but he made some really nice reads tonight. He was looking to pass first, which is not something you usually see with Zach LaVine. He finished with 9 assists, and quite a few of them were times where in the past we would have seen Zach LaVine take a shot, whether it's a mid-ranger from the elbow that he usually would shoot instead of finding an open shooter in the corner, or just not making the extra pass in a swing. Like, Zach LaVine played very unselfishly tonight, made all the right decisions, and he has to be applauded for that because that's kind of been the knack on him so far in his NBA career. This was a nice game for him as he made the big shot and did a nice job playmaking, even if the shooting numbers aren't great. 6 for 18 from the field and 3 for 10 from 3 usually would not reflect upon a great night from a guy of Zach LaVine's caliber, but the extenuating circumstances with the big shot and the playmaking kind of do away with the inefficiency, and there's a lot of positive takeaways from this game for Zach. He's still able to be a positive influence on the Bulls' offensive attack, even when his shots aren't going down. Whose shots were going down tonight, however, is Otto Porter Jr. Porter finished with 19 points and 13 rebounds and was really the steadying force for this Bulls team tonight. He kept them in the game throughout by knocking down very important shots. A lot of it was just spot-up threes in the corner, on the wing, whatever. But that's really what Otto Porter Jr.'s role is, and he's a very good role player. I think that he is someone that can really help this Bulls team out, and I think that he should be in the starting lineup this year in the place of Patrick Williams, but that's a debate for another day. I also would understand starting Pat at the 4 and Otto at the 3 long term and bringing Lauri off the bench. But nonetheless, I am a big fan of Otto Porter Jr., and I think that he has a very big impact on the game with his 3 and D skills. He also did a terrific job defensively as he was matched up on Damian Lillard for a good portion of the game. Basically, whenever Garrett Temple was off the court, that's who the Bulls were putting on Dame. Although, with the exception of the first quarter, Dame had 13 of his 24 points in that first quarter, and he was shredding the defense of Coby White and Zach LaVine. So after that, Billy Donovan made the adjustment. He put Porter on Dame, he put Garrett Temple on Dame, and those guys were much more ready to take on that difficult matchup, and they did a really nice job of cooling Dame off. He finished with a pretty poor night efficiency-wise, shooting 6 for 17 from the field, 3 for 11 from 3. He got to the line 11 times, but it just wasn't the night that the Blazers needed Dame to have in order to propel them to victory. Like I said before, though, Garrett Temple also deserves a lot of credit for the job he did on Dame tonight. He also knocked down his three-point attempts as he finished with 14 points, 4 for 9 from 3, and also picked up 3 steals. He is active on the defensive end, and that's what the Bulls are going to need from him. Thad Young as well, who finished with 10, 8, and 4 and was very effective as a small ball center tonight. Those two guys are keys for this team because they are good veteran role players who do their jobs and are not exactly prone to making mistakes, although Thad Young did have a pretty egregious charge. That was a big mistake by him. towards the end of the game. But overall, those two guys are very trustworthy, and they're going to make this young core better. And tonight, you really have to appreciate what they did for this team. Temple, in particular, should be viewed as a primary reason why the Bulls were able to win this game, because of his defense on Dame. And I'm sure that he won't get the credit that he deserves, but this was a big game for him and for this team as a whole, as they are starting to really look like they are a team and someone that can compete with some of the better teams in the league. I have the Blazers ranked as a top 10 team, and the Bulls certainly looked like they were on the same level as this team for large portions of the night. Now, there are some things that you need to address with the Blazers. I was actually kind of impressed. I thought that they were doing better with the off-the-ball stuff for large parts of this game. There were multiple occasions where Nurkic caught the ball at the top of the key, and Dame and CJ were cutting or screening for each other, and Nurkic ended up finishing with 6 assists alongside his 12 points and 11 rebounds. And a couple of those were some really nice passes where he threaded the needle to find a cutter for a finish. And I liked that from Terry Stotts, and I'd like to see them do that more. But they really went away from it down the stretch, and it was just isolation after isolation, whether it was from Dame or CJ or Carmelo. It's just somebody standing, it's 4 guys standing around and 1 guy dribbling, and that's just not an effective form of offense. And, oh, don't even get me started. Why was Carmelo on the court? I would have much rather seen Gary Trent out there, who is, by all measures, a better player and someone who is much more complimentary to the Blazers stars. But they just have this attachment to Carmelo Anthony, and he plays too many minutes. The shots were even falling for him tonight, and you could tell that he had a negative impact on the game. So I was very disappointed in Terry Stotts and some of his coaching decisions. I actually thought that this was the best game from Nurkic we've seen all year. He was only 6, or at least that I've seen all year. I've only watched 3 of the Trailblazers' 7 games so far. As I caught this one, I caught the one against the Warriors, and I caught the one against the Lakers. But Nurkic looked pretty good. He was protecting the rim well, and he made those nice passing reads. He also finished at the rim off of some nice feeds from Dame a couple times, but he's got to get better. He has to look more comfortable inside as a scorer, and I'm sure that will come with time as he continues to readjust to the rigors of the NBA season. CJ McCollum had a pretty good night tonight, had 26 points on 10 for 21 shooting, was 6 for 14 from 3. You have to appreciate CJ taking so many more threes than he has in the past. He's finally catching up with the state of the game, and it's going to make him that much better of a player. If his scoring average can stay up here around 25 points per game and he's going to shoot the ball this efficiently, there's going to be a very real case for him to make the All-Star team in the Western Conference this year. And that's certainly impressive considering he has never made it before. But he did struggle quite a bit down the stretch as his shots weren't falling and he wasn't able to readjust and do different things with the ball. He just kept going back to the same moves, the same step back threes, the same mid-range looks where he's falling away from the basket, and I just don't know that he has a strong alternative option to the jump shot, and that's really going to limit how effective he can be. Robert Covington was knocking down his threes tonight. Kanter did what Kanter does, terrible defense, but good rebounding, and he scores. He's not really good on offense, I would say, because he plugs up spacing so much, but whatever. Yeah, I'm disappointed in the Blazers. This is a team that they should beat, and the fact that they just got so lackadaisical and so isolation heavy down the stretch is definitely a concerning sign. I had this team as a top 5 team in the West, and based on what I've seen both tonight as well as in that Warriors game, I don't think that they're locked to be one of the top 6 seeds, and they look more like a play-in tournament type team to me right now, which is a bit lower than I expected them to be coming into the season. However, they did have that terrific game against the Lakers last week in which we saw Gary Trent Jr. just go on a rampage. And if that Portland team is what we're going to get the rest of the season, then I think that they're a genuine championship contender. So you've got some Jekyll and Hyde stuff here. So it's going to come down to how consistent this team can be. And right now, well, I've just got a lot of questions. Overall, though, this is a pretty fun night of basketball. We saw the games decided by 5 points combined, as the Lakers beat the Grizzlies by 2 and the Bulls beat the Blazers by 3. So a lot of fun stuff tonight, and I'm excited for the season to continue. So let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. What kind of feelings did that Zach LaVine shot inspire in you? It certainly made me excited. So let me know. Leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video. That's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all again very soon.